Okay, everybody, this is Dr. Joe, and it is 3:02 Eastern Time, and I hope you are doing well wherever you are. Can you check to make sure it's okay? And so on. So just let me know where you're calling in from or streaming in from, and I'll give you a little shout out, and so on. So let's have a look. Who we got here? Just indicate where you're calling in from or dialing in from. That'd be great. And I've got Hunter Newsom. Okay, let's have a look. Let's go live. Hey, hi guys. Little boy red. Florida. We got Airborne Daddy from Florida. We got California Marie. Hey Marie, how you doing? Williamsburg, Virginia. We got Houston, Texas. We have California. Joe. A lot of people from California today. Florida. Okay. Ohio. There you go. And anybody from out of space or space station, just give me a shout out. You got New York. If you're coming from Mars or Venus or Saturn, just let me know. Boston, Massachusetts in the house. Allentown, Pennsylvania. Indianapolis. We got a whole South Africa. Oh my goodness. We got hey Garrett, how you doing? And got Garrett from South Africa. We got Seattle. We got Utah. We're going national. Kuwait, I'll tell you. Hey, you're right. We're going international now. We got Kuwait, we got South Africa, we got Charlotte, we got Bronx, we got the whole wide world. Okay, in tune with Dr. Joe. Welcome again. This is the first time in a few weeks I've been doing it just by myself. And last time we had Barbara Corcoran. And based on the reviews that I got, I thought it was fantastic. And I think a lot of people enjoyed it. So thank again, I don't think Barbara's listening, but if she is, thank you, Barbara, for tuning in and being a part of my, being a guest, a VIP guest. A shout out to Barbara and her Business Unusual podcast that she hosts. Thank you. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about creating tenant screening systems. Okay, creating tenant screening systems. And the reason why I wanted to spend some time on that is that, as you all know, I do a lot of buy and hold, primarily using, the BRRRR strategy with Section 8. And what I found is that at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. You can do all the analysis. You can do all the cash-on-cash returns. You can do the net present value. You can do all those Excel spreadsheet due diligence analysis in theory and so on. But at the end of the day, that is all meaningless if you can't find good tenants. Okay, if you're doing the buy and hold strategy, it really doesn't matter. If you got a tenant who doesn't pay you, if you don't have tenants who take care of the house, if you don't have tenants who are pleasant to deal with, and if you always have that revolving, sort of what do you call it? Turnover. Then all your cash on cash returns projections, it goes to zero. Okay, it evaporates in thin air. So the linchpin of the buy and hold strategy is finding good tenants and also making sure those tenants stay on time. Okay, so the key to all of that is screening. Okay, and that's the reason why I wanted to spend some time today on the screening systems and creating systems that work. And I'm going to be sharing I'm going to kind of break this up into a couple of parts. The first part is talking about the systems itself. And, and I'll talk about, three parts really. Talk about the systems in general, and that's tenant screening systems. And I call them sometimes policies, screening policies. And the second part I want to do is kind of review what I do as part of my processes. And if we have time, because we have a 1 hour hard stop, okay? And so it doesn't matter if there's love in the air or you love me, you want me to continue. Unfortunately, I have to stop at when the clock strikes 12. Huh? I've got Cinderella. I'm going to run away in my shoes. And hope there's no Prince Charming though. So I don't. Anyway, I'll leave that alone. So, oh my goodness! I'm too, I'm too much money already. It's only 5 after. Oh my goodness. So no Prince Charming play. Or no shited night, or night in white, shy of the horse, whatever you call it, sell those things. Anyway, so so the bottom line is that screening is the key. And if you get it wrong, it's really you're setting yourself up for failure. So and the funny thing is, as you know, I do all my screening and managing myself, and I don't outsource it to a property management company. I don't outsource it to these other third parties. I do it all myself because, as I said before, it is so important. And what's really shocking, really, to me, is there's a lot of. I mean, I had a tenant about 3 months ago, or 3 or 4 months ago, who she'd been with me for a number of years, and she had a voucher downgraded, and then so she moved from my place to another place, and when she moved, the landlord where she was moving to never called me, never, never asked me about her rental history. Never asked me about whether she pays the rent on time. Never asked me whether she keeps the place up. Nothing. They just accepted her based on I don't know what the criteria they used, and so on. So it got me thinking, and I did the research. It seems like about 65 to 70% of landlords do zero screening. They don't do they don't even inquire. It's all like based on, hey, you speak well, you dress well, you got a good job, and therefore I'll take you. To me, that is crazy, because it's a setup for failure. And I will talk about some of the last part, if we have time, is sort of the lessons learned from doing this for over 30 years. And I've come across some real doozies in terms of potential applicants who've wanted to come into my places, people who have lied blatantly on the application, people who's they're not even the right person. They've tried to impersonate somebody else, and they've said all kind of stuff like so and so is my landlord when that person wasn't the landlord. They lived at this place and they didn't live there. I mean, I've seen a whole boatload of that kind of nonsense, and I call these folks professional tenants. So my systems is all based on that reality. That is, I'm setting myself up, or no, set up these systems with the assumption that the prospective applicant is trying to get over on me. Okay, that's the assumption, and therefore I have to make sure that I do my due diligence to make sure that that doesn't take place. Okay, so that's the assumption going in. Okay, and I said it's always better to be cautious, because in this area, where I'm in the Washington D.C. area, and in Washington D.C. it's a very tenant-friendly jurisdiction, and also in Maryland as well. I know along the East Coast there's a lot of states where it's very pro-tenant, also in California as well. So it's easy to get somebody in your house, but it's a lot more difficult to get them out once they're in. Okay, so it's easier to get somebody in, a lot more difficult to get them out. So therefore, so I'm based on the assumption that it's going to be difficult to get them out, and therefore I don't want the bad ones in the first place. Okay, so now based on my experience, a lot of landlords run into problems based on two scenarios. Okay, they're either in a hurry, the place has been vacant for a few weeks or months or whatever it is, and the mortgage is due, and they have no money, and they need to get some income. And so, this tenant shows up, and says everything that, the landlord wants to hear. And they start flashing money around. And all the landlord can think of is, I got a mortgage due next week and I have no money. And so I need to get somebody in here. So that's one scenario. So they're in a hurry to get this thing going. And the other scenario is when somebody is sort of feels sorry. I feel sorry for this person. They give you a sob story and, bleeding heart. and you are what's it called? Kind of feeling sorry for them, and as a result of that, you fall for it. So they're usually the two scenarios, and so the bottom line, though, is as a landlord, it's your responsibility to screen and to make sure that you get the right person in. Okay, so we all I'm the kind of tenant I'm looking for. I'll say it up front is I'm looking, and again, here's the assumption. The assumption is I'm renting single family homes. Okay, I'm not doing apartment buildings. I'm not doing multi-family units. I'm not doing commercial. I'm not doing storage. I'm buying single family homes. Okay, that's the assumption. And with the single family homes, if the place is vacant or you have no rent, if the place is vacant, you have zero rent. Okay, if the person doesn't pay you, you have zero rent. And so forth. Whereas in a multi-family, if the person doesn't pay you, you still got some income from other units. Okay, so there's a big difference between a single family and a multi-family, and therefore what I'm talking about today is primarily geared to the single family arena, where if you get it wrong, you are in a death spiral. Okay, if you screen wrong, you're setting up yourself up for failure. So as part of that screening process, you want to make sure that your screening systems is legal. You got to be aware. You've got to be aware of fair housing laws, and many states and local jurisdictions have other, layers on top of the standard fair housing, criteria. Sort of the protected classes, and so you got to be compliant with fair housing, and I'll kind of talk about some of that a bit later on. And so you want to make sure that your screening process or systems doesn't anyway sort of go against any of those things. And what I try and do, I think what I do is have my screening systems and processes documented. Okay, and in fact, on my application, on the first page, in bold, I tell them exactly what's going to happen should they express interest in the house. And this is going to be applied to everybody. It's not just, I'll do it for this person, not that person. This is across the board to everybody. So I state my written policy right up front, so there's no confusion. And many times, surprisingly a lot, and I tell people to read it. First of all, I explain it. I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E. And as part of the screening process, in my case, I'm going to call your current landlord, previous landlord. I'm going to check your income, check your credit. I'm going to also do an eviction search, background searches. And on top of that, I'm going to go to your home to see how you keep your home. Okay, so that's what I do as part of every single application. And so if somebody is uncomfortable with any of those things, then to me, it makes no point them even filling the application. And I tell them that, don't waste your time because this is what I'm going to do. And so it's almost like a self-screening mechanism for prospective applicants. And none of those things are in violation with fair housing. So a policy, what it does, it streamlines the process. Okay. And it really, it gives you some basis for rejecting people. Okay. And it also takes it away from what I call, what's the right word? Subjective sort of a process, a subjective process to think, where, it's a more of a quantitative sort of process whereby it's, it's objective as opposed to subjective. That's probably a better way, isn't it? So I want to get away from a subjective where, I get gut feeling, or whatever. I like, you like my favorite football team, and therefore I'm going to rent to you because you're a great Redskins fan. We're in Washington D.C. area, so the Redskins, Yeah. We could debate that another side whether they're any good, but the idea is that you rate you rent it to people on subjective values or subjective criteria. You want objective. Okay, what's your credit score? What's your income? What's your payment history? And do you have a criminal background issues that's gonna could affect possibly renting to you and so forth. These are clear objective reasons and so on. So your screening systems should be more geared towards objective as opposed to subjective. Okay, so step one, as part of the screening criteria would be what are your goals? I've told you, not told you, I suggested that the first thing is make sure you sort of you're compliant with fair housing. And we all want the same thing, at least I do anyway, for single families. I'm looking for a qualified tenant that has a proven track record of paying their rent on time, a proven track record of keeping their places up, a proven track record of complying with their lease obligations. And me, I'm looking for people who are looking to stay a long time, as opposed to short-term, renters and so on. So these are my goals. And obviously, you need to decide on your goals because your goals may be different. Okay, I'm just sharing with you my goals. Okay, so the process. Okay, so let me kind of talk about. So on the first one, which is at least on the process standpoint, is to so the assumption is that you have a house that's ready. Okay, and you've advertised the house, and then people come to the house and people like your house. And then the next thing they want to do is, yes, I'm interested in your house. And then you want to give them an application. Okay. So that's where we start. Sort of, that's sort of the backdrop. So you're looking for the most qualified person for your home based on your criteria. Okay. So if you want to verify your, income, for example, is this person going to pay me my rent? Okay, am I going to get my money? Okay, so what are the things to objective reasons or objective things that you can do to determine that? Okay, so obviously one thing is their income. How much money do they make relative to the rent? I know a lot of landlords look for that 3 times the rent. So if your rent is $1,000, then ideally this person would be earning around $3,000. I do a lot of Section 8, so in many times that doesn't work. Okay, so because they're low income, and in our area the rents are high. Okay, so for voucher holders, the next best thing next other thing, if it's not income, is the source of income. Okay, and that's where the housing authority payments come in. Okay, so if they have a voucher, then it offsets the fact that they don't have a large income. Okay, so that works for me. Okay, so they don't need to have 3 times the salary for my rents, because my rents are usually $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, and for most low-income families, they don't have that. If they did, they wouldn't be considered low income, and they wouldn't be on the program anyway. So the source of income. And the other thing is, have they demonstrated financial, responsibility, which will be your credit report. What does your credit report say? Okay, so some landlords, they have like a minimum credit requirements or score requirements. It could be 650 and up. What I found is, at least for me, a lot of the voucher holders, their credit isn't always that great. Okay, so it's good to find somebody who's got good credit, but many times that's not the case. So I don't put as much weight on the credit score for voucher holders as I would be if there was a non-voucher holder. For a non-voucher holder, obviously, there's no other source of income, and therefore their financial responsibility in the past becomes more important. And but the other thing which is important is, what's their history of paying on-time rent? Okay, that is very important to me. Does this person pay their rent on time, or do they not pay their rent on time, or do they even pay their rent? And so that's where, you know, your at least for what I do, because most landlords don't report to the credit bureaus, so therefore doing a credit check doesn't necessarily let you know whether they pay their rent on time. It may tell you that they pay their car note, their credit cards, and things like that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll pay their rent. Okay, so that's where the eviction or the court system searches come in play. So I usually verify the court systems, and where in this area where we are, everything is a legal process if you want to evict somebody, and therefore, if you file paperwork with the county or the state or the district, then you have to go through a legal process. So therefore, there's a track record that exists in the public records of this person. So that's usually very, very important to me. So I usually check that out and see if this person has a history of landlords taking them to court and things like that. Okay, because some of these what I call professional tenants, they're really good. The reason why they can pay their car note, the reason why they can pay their credit cards on time, is because they're not paying their rent. Okay, and they know most landlords aren't going to do a court system search, so they'll do a credit search. And so they make sure that all those items that are on the credit report are in fact paid on time. But anything else that's not on the credit report, including rent, they don't pay that, and so on. So obviously, income, their employment is another big thing to verify whether they can pay their rent on time. Again, the same thing for a voucher holder. That is, believe it or not, it's not really that important whether they have a good job. Technically, it doesn't even matter if they even got a job, to tell the truth, because the portion that they pay in the rent is based on their income. So if most of them do have work, most of them do have jobs, but they may not be sort of high-paying professional, salary jobs that many of your non-market rent or your market renters have. So, but because their income is not that great, a large portion of the rent is paid by the housing authority, and the delta, the difference, is what they pay. Okay, so the other thing would be, okay, then, so we've got an idea of how to verify sort of income, whether you're going to get your rent on time. I'll give you some ideas there. Now, the other thing is, what's it called? Do they follow the lease? Are these people, gangsters? Are these people, tenants from hell? Are these people every landlord's nightmare? Are these people, a train wreck waiting to happen? Now, how do you verify that? Okay, so other things that you'll do for that would be, again, you can look at the public records and see if they've had any suits against them in courts, whether it be landlord, civil, criminal, and so on. You can do criminal background checks on these folks. You can contact current landlords, previous landlords. The other thing about landlords and is it's a double-edged sword. Okay, the current landlord, if this person's a tenant from hell, okay, every landlord's nightmare, and I called the landlord and said, okay, I don't know, I'm gonna pick on Nikki since she's invisible. Hey, Nikki. She's a producer for Bigger Pockets. So let's just assume that Nikki is the tenant from hell, okay, and she applies for my house, and I call her landlord, and I'm going to call her I'm going to say her landlord is Laura. Okay, Laura's here. She, no one knows. She's my assistant. So Laura is Nikki's landlord. Okay, so I'm going to call Laura and say, Laura, I hear you're renting to Nikki. Okay, and now Laura is she's a really good person, but let's just say she's a bad person. She's gonna say, "Oh my goodness, Nikki! Oh, Nikki's fantastic! Oh my goodness, she's a great tenant. She pays her rent on time. She is so good that I'll help her move tonight if you want her." I'll pay for the truck if you want. She's that good, okay? Okay. So Laura's hidden agenda is to get Nikki out of my house. Okay, so so she'll say whatever she wants. She'll say all the stuff which I want to hear, such that I will take Nikki on. Okay, you see what I'm saying? So a current landlord may have a hidden agenda if the tenant is bad. And so you may not always get the truth from the current landlord. Now, most landlords aren't like that. Most landlords will tell you the truth. But again, I've been doing this long enough where I've, many a time I've come across that scenario and so on. So how do you get around that? Okay, the way around that is to call Nikki's previous landlord. Okay, and because the previous landlord has got rid of Nikki. I'm sorry, Nikki, for picking on you. What's it called? She's, the previous landlord's got rid of Nikki, and now he or she can tell me the real deal about her experiences with Nikki, and they'll say, "Oh, Nikki was fantastic," or "Nikki was the tenant from hell," and da 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 da. So I usually like to call the previous landlord in addition to the current landlord, because you get a really true, report on the person's tenant history. Okay, and so does this person pay their rent on time? Does this person, have you had any complaints about noise? Have you had complaints about traffic? Have you had drug activity? Have you had, all these kind of things are what a current and previous landlord can provide you. And so I try to get that information. Have you ever had to evict her? Have you ever taken to landlord tenant? How many times? And do they pay the utilities on time? Do they not pay the utility on time? Do they get the security deposit back? Do they not? Do they keep the house up? all these questions you can gauge on whether this person pays or follows the lease. Okay, by doing that kind of due diligence. The other thing is as a landlord, I want to make sure that my tenant is going to keep my place up. Okay, and keep it up meaning that they're not going to destroy it. They're not going to trash it. They're not going to jeopardize my investment. In the Washington D.C. area, we're talking about $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 houses. Okay, these aren't $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 houses. It's a very expensive market that we're in here, and therefore I want to make sure that this person who I'm renting to is going to protect my investment. Because if they don't, I'm potentially putting $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 on the line. Okay, and I'm not going to put that kind of money on the line without making sure that this person is going to take care of my investment. Okay, I don't care what anybody says, and so therefore I want to make sure that this person has a history of taking care of their home and making sure that they do the right thing once they're in my home and things like that. So again, and this is probably the most controversial part of what I do. At least when I speak to other landlords, I go to their home. I want to see how this person keeps their home. Okay, and because I found that how somebody keeps their home today is hands down, no debate. What's it called? Best way of finding out how my house is going to be in 3 months. Okay. I don't care what anybody says. It doesn't matter if this person talks well, if this person looks good, this person got a certain job, if this person, drives this kind of car. That's irrelevant in terms of how they keep their house. Okay. And it's completely irrelevant. Just because you got a good job doesn't mean you're going to keep your house up. Just because you drive a fancy car doesn't mean that you keep your house up. Okay. Just because you earn this income doesn't mean that you're going to keep it. It's totally, completely irrelevant. And I'll debate without anybody. Okay. The best way to know how your house is going to be in 3 months is to go to their home. Okay. Because that's how your home's going to be in 3 months. Okay. If you go there and you like what you see, then there's a pretty good chance this person is going to take care of your house. If you go there and you don't like what you see, then there's a pretty good chance that that's how your house is going to be. So if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but that's how it's going to be if you rent to this person. Okay. So, I know people are saying, well, that's different. In this area, this part of the country, we don't do that. Well, hey, that's on you. But I'm just telling you that, after doing this for 30 years, that is the single most important thing I do, is to go to their home. And if someone doesn't want me to come to their home, that's okay. They're just not renting my house. And it's as simple as that. And I explained to them, and hold on a minute, no other landlord does this. Well, hey, but this is what I do. And so on. It's on the first page of the application form, and it's the first page. It's a policy. So it's not like I'm going to do it for this person, not that person, and so on. I do it for everybody. Okay. And so on. So that is, and then I think when I was on Brandon's podcast several months ago, Bigger Pockets podcast, real estate. I'm sorry, the Bigger Pockets real estate podcast with Brandon and David. Sorry, Dave. And I think Brandon asked the question. What he was seen very perplexed or surprised that I would go out of my way to go to people's homes. And my response to that was, I'm looking at a 5, 10, 15, 20-year relationship. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this person to be in my house the next 15 years. Okay, my longest tenant is 23 years. And I don't have a problem, taking an hour or two out of my time to go look at somebody's house. And because, as I said before, we're talking about $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 asset, and I'm looking for someone who's going to be here that long. So so once, a couple of hours of my time is okay if I only do that every 5, 10, 15 years. Okay, that's where I'm coming from. It's a good trade-off. 2 hours every 15 years is okay with me, and so on. Now, if I had to do it every other month or every year, then it could be a problem there. Okay, so okay, let's have a look. 3:35. So I got about 5 more minutes before I wrap it up. Is that okay with you, Miss Laura? 5 minutes. So I'm going to talk 5 minutes. If you want me to continue, then you're going to have to show me some love. Okay, I need some love here, so I can tell Laura to back off. I've got 1 hour. She said, so I got 25 minutes. Okay, so show me some love, and what's it called? The next time round, they will. Oh, there you go. There's the love. Love is in the air. Okay, I feel it now. I feel it better. You're making me blush. Oh. See the love, Laura. There's a love. The love is on your Instagram. There's so much love in Instagram. I tell you. I don't know about. I can't see YouTube and what's it called, Facebook, but I know people on Instagram love me. Oh, there you go. All right. Okay. There you go. Okay. Anyway, get back to reality. So, I also, check references. And there's a lot of other stuff. I mean, I could go on and talk about this forever. And but since we've got 3 or 4 minutes left before I wrap it up, put it all together. Okay, so establish your criteria before you start even considering accepting applications. Set up your policies, your screening criteria. Okay, make it detailed. Make sure that you are compliant with fair housing laws and also compliant with any state and local regulations in your area. Make sure that your application is reviewed or your policies is reviewed by an attorney that knows the local laws wherever you are. Okay, and apply your screening criteria evenly across the board. So don't kind of do the subjective things. Use objective, criteria to select tenants, and stick to your screening criteria. And and so on. So that's sort of putting it all together. And I'll give you a couple of experiences. Let's just put it that way. Experiences from the trenches over 30 years. I mean, I've seen it all. Okay, let me give you a couple of stories. Okay, you won't believe this. One. Okay, so first one is somebody filled an application. Oh yeah. I love the house. Da 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 da. It's a dream home. Blah 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 blah. And they filled the application, and what's it called? And I said, okay, great. Let me see your ID. And they weren't expecting that one. And so they, they oohed and awed and twitched and, shake their head. And they said, oh, I left my ID in my car. I said, okay, go and get it then. And so they went to the car and drove off. Okay. So what that means is that this person was pretending to be somebody else. Okay. So he had all the information of somebody else, and they filled the application with somebody else's information. Okay. And when I asked for ID, they realized that they were caught red-handed because they didn't have the ID that matched the application. Okay. So they drove off. Okay. So that's happened to me several times. I know, again, I'm sharing with stories from 30 years experience. Okay. So that's the reason why I'm kind of sharing with you these things. So hopefully you can, there's some really good professional tenants out here who know how to game how to game the system and so on. Okay, so another good one is people who lie about the landlords. I've had scenarios whereby, let's just say I'm gonna pick on Nikki again. Okay, so because Nikki's not here, so I'm gonna pick on her. Sorry, Nikki. So let's just say that Nikki is let's have a look. Is looking for a place. And she calls Laura and said, Laura, look, I know I just got evicted last week, but, can you pretend that you're my landlord? And if somebody calls you, just say great things about me. So, so Nikki and Laura are scheming to get over on me. So how do I find out that Laura is not really the true landlord? Okay, that's a common one. Way to do that before I call Laura, the quote unquote landlord. I will check the public records to see if Laura, in fact, owns the property. And the public records will usually say who owns the asset. And lo and behold, the public record says the house is owned by, I don't know, let's have a look, Kevin. And so Kevin is the real owner. Laura is a pseudo owner that is schemed with Nikki. Hope everybody understands where I'm coming from. So I will find out that, in fact, the house is owned by Kevin. So when I speak to Laura, she's playing along with this game. Oh, Nikki's a great person. She pays around time. She's fantastic. Blah, blah, blah. I go along with that whole charade until the end. I say, okay, Laura, so are you the owner of the house? And Laura said, oh, yeah. How long you owned it? Oh, about 3 years. I said, well, who's Kevin? Uh-huh. So, and she's, well, I don't know, who are you talking about? Well, I'm saying to her, well, according to the public records, Kevin is the owner of the house and not you. So, who are you? And that's usually when Laura said, well, my cell phone's kind of dying here. My battery is dead. So let me call you back. Click. So that's I mean, you'll believe how many times that's happened to me. I tell you. This is another good one. This like, I mean, I can go on this for all day. Okay, we've only got 15 minutes here, so I'm gonna have to cut it down. I mean, I could go through stories. I mean, the real good ones are when people. I had this lady come up. She said, "Oh man, I had a dream last night, visions. The Lord spoke to me and said that I'll be coming to this house." And the Lord said that this was the house, and so on. I said, okay, great, good. So when someone comes in and says those kind of things, you want to, the assumption is that they have religious tendencies, and the assumption is that they have good character, and they're honest and ethical and so forth. So so she was going along with this stuff. Oh, let's pray together. Let's sprinkle some water on the house because this is my dream home. Blah blah blah. And so I felt good about that. So I still say, hey, you got to fill the application anyway. So she filled the application. Everything looked good. And it's part of the home visit. I went to the home. Oh, I went to the home. It was on a Wednesday, in fact. And so we went there on a Wednesday. And she said, oh, my family's here. And, we normally on Wednesday, we go to Bible study. But because you were coming, we decided to all stay home. Okay, that's good. And so I opened the door, when I first knocked on the door, first thing that showed up was this pit bull. And, on the application it says no pets. So this pit bull shows up on the door. And I said, okay. And this pit bull knew their way around the house. I says, well, who's this pit bull? Oh, that's my landlord's pit bull. And when the landlord goes away, he he lets us take care of the dog. Can you believe that? That's a pretty original one. And so, I mean, yeah, as I was verifying this stuff, it was just lies after lies after lies after lies. I mean, it was just unbelievable. The house is in pretty bad shape as well. It really was a disappointment because I really, I felt good about this person, but as part of the due diligence, which I always do, cracks started appealing, and then the whole thing just fell apart. And many times I've been to people's homes and it's just destroyed, it's trashed, or you can go in there, or the first thing you smell is like pine sol, So they just cleaned the house about 2 minutes before you showed up. And, always when you go to the bathroom, the curtains are always closed, and I always open the curtains to see what's behind the bathtub and things. I mean, these are all things that you may think is extreme. But I'm just telling you that I've been through this so many times, and this is why I do what I do. And this is why I don't have as many problems as a lot of landlords do. This is why I love the Section 8 program, because there's a lot of quality families who are fantastic. They're just yearning for an opportunity, yearning for somebody to give them a chance. And they don't object to all those due diligence which I'm doing and so on. So, there is no difference between a market renter and a Section 8 renter. At the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings, okay? And they're human beings that are good, bad, and ugly in all of us. And your responsibility as a landlord, and this is your responsibility after all is said and done, is to make sure that you screen correctly such that you get somebody in your house that's going to pay your rent, it's going to take care of your home, it's going to be pleasant to deal with, and they're going to stay a long time. Okay. Now you're going to have to develop your own systems. I've just shared with you a high level of my systems. My application is 8 pages long, and it's very detailed. And I'm just sharing with you stories from the trenches, stories from, and I've made every single mistake that you can think of. Okay. And I've had my fair share of tenants from hell. And it's not good. It's very stressful. And it is very, there's nothing worse than a tenant who knows how to game the system, and they are smiling in your face, and they know there's nothing you can do about it, and they're not paying you a dime in rent. Okay. You run through that scenario, and anyway. Okay. That's it. So I'm going to go to, again, I've got 15 minutes worth of Q&A. I would love to continue longer, but I don't think I can. So I'm going to go to 15 minutes of Q&A, and let's go to some questions. Okay. This is from Stephen on Facebook. How much warning do you give before you come by? There's no surprises, Stephen. I arrange a time with a tenant or prospective tenant. I'm going to go to your home. And so we said this date, this time, we're going to come to the house. It's not one of those things where, hey, I just happen to be in the neighborhood and just knock on your door. I don't do none of those games. Because I'm straight up front, transparency. And I let them know I'm going to do a screening, go to the home, and we arrange a time. I also insist that everybody that's on the application is going to be on the house the day I show up. Okay. I insist everybody's going to be there, because many times you have, someone in the family, the gangster in the family, or the bad person in the family, or the, I don't know, the rebel, or whoever it is. And they usually want to hide that person from you. And the first time you see that person is when they're in your home. So I want to make sure I want to see everybody who's going to be there. Okay. Good question, Steve. Okay. Let me go to Instagram. Wow. How you are the only other investor that I have ever heard of as an 8-page application. So how do I have my you cannot get my application. If you're part of my JV program, maybe, but not, I'm sorry. Okay, let's keep rolling. What company do you use to get your credit reports and legal background checks? There's a whole host of companies out here. Rent Check. They just go to Bigger Pockets has a relationship with one of the companies. There's a lot. Just do a Google search on tenant screening, and you'll find a lot of companies that provide those background checks. Usually pretty inexpensive, $20, $30, $40. I think Equifax has one, or Experian has one, and so on. But yeah. Okay. Could you see what your application? Oh God, not the application again. Are you able to share your application? What should I do? Because everybody wants my application. Pardon? What? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, that's not. Okay, can we get your application? Oh my goodness. How do you? Okay, let's have a look. How do you bring up the conversation of I'm coming to come into your current home to see how you take care of it? How's that conversation come up? It comes up by it's on the app. It's on the first page of the application, so it's on there. So I go through when they walk through the door, and I say, if you like the house, this is what we're going to do. We're going to check your current landlord, previous landlord, income credit, and also going to make an appointment to go visit your home. So it's straight up front, transparency and disclosure, and I explain why I do that, and so on. So that's how it comes up. Okay, another question from Ruth on Facebook. What do you do for out-of-state applicants? What do you do for out-of-state applicants? That's a good question. What do I do? I have applications. First of all, I usually require that they come to my home. Okay, I don't do those, like what some of these other management companies do, where they don't even see the person. They fill an online application, and the computer does some kind of algorithm and to decide yes or no. And once they've done that, then the lease is signed electronically. And then the next thing sometimes they have those services where you can go in there and you can press a code and go in the house, so you don't even see the person. To me, that is alien. To me, I know I don't understand why somebody would do that, but again, that's just me. I want to make sure that this person comes to my home. I want to make sure that they fill the application correctly. I want to make sure that I ask them the questions. I want to make sure that I do the due diligence in terms of calling a current landlord, previous landlord, and making a home visit. And so that's what I do. If they're out of state, then a couple of things can happen. It doesn't what's it called? What's the right word? Mean that the application can be rejected. It may mean that, because I do have people who are moving in from out of state to this area. It just means that I'm going to either have to call a lot more emphasis is going to be placed on their previous landlord and current landlord, and they will at some point have to come over and see the house. I don't do it as virtual. I want them to come over and see it for themselves. And then if necessary, it may require a co-signer if there's some documentation that's just not there, and so on. So there's got to be some mechanism to protect me. So it's a bit more riskier when you have an out-of-state application, but that doesn't necessarily allow me, or doesn't necessarily mean that I will reject the application. No, I'll try and work with people and so on. Okay. Okay. Are there books you recommend for landlords? There's quite a few books. I mean, I know Brandon Turner's written a good book. And I think that's on the Bigger Pockets. So I think I bought that. Yeah, I bought that book. It's pretty good. Mr. Landlord's got some good stuff. That's Jeffrey Taylor. And so there's some good stuff out there that you may want to check out if you want to sort of delve more into the landlording. But I'm just very, very thorough. And because I realized that it's this sole decision, i.e. who's going to your home, is the single most important decision that you'll ever make if you're going to be in the buy and hold business. Okay. Here it is. The book on managing rental properties is available at biggerpockets.com/store. And so you want to check that out. Kudos to Brandon Turner. Hopefully, Brandon, you're going to give me some kickback. Ha ha ha. Nah, just kidding. Okay, got a question from Florentino. How do you deal with tenants who have extra family members, quote, visiting, actual living, okay, in the house, but claim the family member is not staying overnight? Okay, so the question becomes, what is a guest? The definition of a guest. In my lease, which is 20 pages long. My rental application is 8 pages. My lease is 20 pages. Okay, so again, don't ask me for my lease because I only give that to my JV students. Okay, so how do you? The definition of a guest, according to my lease, is somebody that stays continuously for 14 days or more. Okay, that's the definition of the guest. So somebody that's coming in for overnight for the weekend is not considered. It's considered a guest. They're not really part of the rental. So on me, so for my scenario is when we write up the lease, we go through the lease. I put on the lease everybody that is going to live there. Okay, because on my application they have to disclose all the people that's going to be there. Okay, so let's just say that it's the head of household, maybe a single person or a couple, and then they may have 1 or 2 or multiple children. So they will list all those on the application. And that I will then transfer that same information onto the lease. Okay. So on my lease, it states who is authorized to live there as occupants. Okay. And a definition of a guest is somebody who's not on that application, not on the lease, but stays for less than 14 days. That gives me the right to evict somebody or the family because it's a lease violation when it's a violation of the lease. It's on the lease. It states it's a line item on the lease, and so on. So this is one way I do it. And for Section 8, what they call the HAP contract, they will also list who's going to be living in, who's part of the voucher. So anybody who's not on that voucher list is not authorized to stay there. So I also do a cross-reference to make sure that what the government says should be living there and who they say are living there are the same. And if they're not, then I want to make sure there's somebody has to address that discrepancy, and then I'll then include that on the lease itself. Okay. Let's have a look. Let's go to Instagram. How do you check who owns the house? You do that. It's on public records. Go to every state has their own systems for that, and you may want to check your local area where the who owns where the property information resides. Okay, let's have a look. Let's keep going. Nikki, you want to throw a question? Otherwise, I'll keep going from here. Do you charge a fee to process the application? Do I charge a fee? Yes, I charge $25 on the application. And so they have to provide $25 application fee when they submit the application. Okay, that's usually either by, I don't usually take cash check, but it could be cash check, Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, or whatever. And usually my rents are, the security deposit is 1 month's rent as well. So what do you do about security deposits with low-income tenants? A couple of ways. You can either do it if they have the rent, if they have the security, because my security deposit is 1 month's rent. Okay, so in our area, 1 month's rent is $3,000, $4,000, $6,000. Okay, and so obviously a lot of low-income families don't have $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 floating around. So therefore, sometimes there are organizations that help with a security deposit, depending on your jurisdiction where you are. Sometimes the housing authority helps with security deposits. And if not, then you can set up a payment plan whereby that security deposit will be paid over time. And I usually write the agreement down within the lease as well. So if they don't pay or adhere to the agreement for the security deposit, then that's a lease violation as well, which I could then take them to court and evict them. So that's what I do for the security deposit. But all my rentals, it's 1 month's rent is 1 month security deposit. Okay, what does he mean by JV student? Oh my goodness. Go to my website, joeasamoah.com, www.joeasamoah.com, and you can get more information about how I can work with you and so forth. Okay. JV is a type of visa. No, it's not a visa. Joint venture. That's what the program is called. My joint venture program. But I don't want to do any talking about that here because I don't want this. I want this all to be educational. But go to my website, joeasamoah.com, and then you can sort of, we can, you can learn more about who I am, what I do. Okay, VegFex. If I rent my home out and purchase a new one, what is your experience with getting loans while renting the secondary property? No problem. I mean, as part of the burst strategy, fix up the house or buy and hold, you fix up the house and then you refinance. Or if you decide to move from your first house to second house, as long as you got a lease, a contract to prove that there's income coming in, then the mortgage company will, take that into consideration in whether you can get financing for your new home. Okay, so you don't want to start the application for your new home until you have a lease or rental agreement for your existing home to prove that it is being rented and to prove that there is in fact an occupant in the home. Okay, so that's what you do there. And it is 3:59, and so I'm going to have to wrap it up. I am so sorry. I normally go on longer than an hour, but today Laura wants to go home and get out of here. Nikki wants to a weekend off. So I'm gonna have to cut it short. Next time round, if it's okay with those guys, I will stay a bit longer. Again, this is Joe Asamoah. You can come, let's go to my website, www.joeasamoah. That's Joe Asamoah, Asamoah, joeasamoah.com, and we can engage and we can talk and hopefully we can connect as well. So with that said and done, I want to thank everybody again. Thanks to Bigger Pockets for allowing me the platform. And hopefully I will speak to you in a couple of weeks on Friday at 3 p.m. Have a good weekend. Take care. Bye.